Good day, everyone. I would like to greet every one of you a pleasant day. Those who are continuously watching and following ACF Daily Devotion. Our devotion for today is found in the book of First Kings chapters 2 and 3. But before we will proceed, I will give the gist for the two chapters. In chapter 2, it speaks about the last instruction of King David to his successor, Solomon, in which he gave the foremost instruction, the foremost mandate to observe all the requirements God has given him, to follow his ways, keep his commands, his laws and decrees. And these laws has corresponding promises and warnings as well. And he also gave the instruction not to forget his unfinished businesses with Joab, Barzillai, and Shimei. While in chapter 3, it speaks about the alliance of Solomon to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which resulted him marrying one of his daughters. However, he started as a good king and declined because of this affinity or this alliance with the king of Egypt. We can also recall the dream God gave Solomon of the Lord was asking him what he wanted God to give him. And the Lord was pleased with the request of Solomon to give him an understanding heart to govern his people, well, knowing or distinguishing between right and wrong. This consequently made Solomon become famous and rich king. Today, we're going to entitle the message of God, Forget Not, or Never Forget. In the verse I found is found in First Kings chapter 2, verse 3 and 4, and chapter 3, verse 3. I'm going to read from chapter 3, verse 2. No, chapter 2, verse 3. And keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments, and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself. In verse 4, that the Lord God may continue his word which he spake concerning me, saying, If thy children take heed to their way, to walk before me in truth with all their hearts and with all their soul, there shall not fail thee a man in the throne of Israel. And in chapter 3, verse 3, Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and burned incense in high places. The word that struck me here is the word only. Only he sacrificed and burned incense in high places. It seemed like after all the good examples King David gave Solomon, he was enticed and easily persuaded by the people he governed by sacrificing and burning incense in high places. This is rather a negative comment rather than good to his rule being king. We remember that King David during his reign was known to burn and destroy high places in cities he subdued. But now Solomon was doing otherwise. He easily forget. As we remember, during the time when God was asking him, what would you want me to give you? And Solomon recalled the goodness of God in his father's life. And he compared himself, being a child, being a novice, concerning governing. And he gave a very good request to God that pleased the Lord. Oftentimes we are like that. We experience short-sightedness in which At one time, we feel ecstatic about how God has given us beautiful experiences. Then suddenly, when we faced with pressing situations such as this time, during this time of pandemic, we forget. There are times when we felt that we are all alone, and oftentimes when we feel that we don't have anyone beside us, or being laid off from our works, we become oblivious of God's faithfulness and goodness. Recalling God's faithfulness in our lives makes our feet to be settled on the ground, whether we experience victories, successes, or maybe trials, defeat and difficulties. May we be reminded that God is our great God, and He is good to us always. My brethren, may we never forget how God answered our prayers, heal our sicknesses, miraculously protect us, and rescue us from all troubles, and how His grace and goodness. May we be reminded, brothers and sisters, not to forget all these things. One of the reasons probably why we have our journal is to put our experiences with God, to place our anxieties, and God has answered us. And this, however, would give us the reminder of how great God is. And with this, brothers and sisters, may we be reminded not to forget how God has been so good to us. We will always be reminded of His faithfulness, His greatness. This will be all, and I wish you all a pleasant day, and God bless everyone.